Recording now.
Right, I think
So-
everyone needs to press continue. And that should be all good, yeah?
So good afternoon and welcome to the first in a series of hashtag Mental Health Matters with our host Sanchez Payne and our panelists today. Today we're going to look at mental health from the perspective of young people, covering various themes, various topics, and we also have Dr. Delroy Hall with us to give us a perspective on how mental health affects our communities as well. This is the first in a series of summer events. The next event will be on the 25th of July at Hedgerow House with Tubada, and it will be an open mic event where you'll be invited to come along and to hear and to also share as well. So keep watching our social media outlets for that information, and there's many more events to actually come over the summer as well. With great delight, I hand over to our host, Sanchez Payne.
Goes wild. Hello guys, thank you so much for being here. So my name is Sanchez Payne. I'm a BBC Radio Leeds presenter and a host as well. I am an ambassador here for Black Health Initiative, BHI, and we've got an amazing summer program coming up, man. And this is something that I've been passionate about for a long time. I'm someone who's been through my own mental health struggles, a lot of it on my own, because I was the kind of guy that everyone came to. And there's the quote saying, you know, who supports the person that's supporting everyone. I've found the ability to speak on it, and it's made me feel so much better. And now I am so much more open about it. So any chance I get to announce that someone who's doing on the surface quite well should be able to speak out and now has to, and there's so many means out there, I want to spread that to a wider audience. So I brought you guys together, and I can't thank you guys enough for being here. If we're going to go around just really quickly, introduce yourself and maybe say one line about what you do. We'll start with Ayo, go to Lorena, and then Dom, and then Delroy, if that's okay.
Good. Hi, I'm Ayo. I'm 22 years old. I'm from Leeds. I graduated from psychology last year, and I have aspirations of becoming a therapist in the future. That's why I'm very interested and passionate about mental health. In the current time though, I'm a full-time model, and yeah, you might have seen me about.
Hi, I'm Lorena. I'm 23 years old. I'm currently a mental health nurse and I work on female psychiatric intensive care. I jumped on this last minute. Sanchez wrote me in, but I'm really happy to be here and spread some awareness on mental health.
Amazing.
Hi, my name is Dominique. I'm 26 years old. I have an undergraduate in dance and business management, and also got a master's in arts management, policy and practice. So what I want to do with that is use dance as a tool to help people with their health and well-being. That's why I'm on this Zoom right now. At the moment, I'm a model. I also teach dance in the community as well. So keeping that going in that sense.
Lovely. And I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Delroy Hall. Thank you so much for being here, Delroy.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. Yeah, Delroy Hall. I think I'm the old fogey of the group. I'm 61, 62 next month. But I was told a few weeks ago, 61, you're very youthful. So, and that's without any plastic surgery and all that type of stuff. So yeah. Nothing wrong with plastic surgery. If you need it, you need it. But yeah. So my name is Delroy Hall. I'm a freelance psychotherapist, counsellor, trainer, and I've got my own company looking at doing counselling and training. And just here, really just grateful for the opportunity to share some hints, tips, and insights on the whole thing about mental health. And for us, it does matter. When it matters for everybody, but when you're part of a marginalised community, it matters even more.
So let's start by diving into that then, Delroy. Let's get your perspective. In general, what's your thoughts on mental health in our generation? And let's be specific to the Black community.
Well, that one question in two parts could take a whole day, kind of two workshops really. But yeah, in terms of mental illness, well, in terms of young people, I spent 20 years working in the university, in fact, over 20 years working in a university setting. And when I first started 30 years ago, if I saw 20 young people, I remember one clearly having depression. Now, the last 4 or 5 years, if I see 20, 14 or 15 young people have depression or anxiety and have been diagnosed before they got to university. So it's not happened when they get to university, 18, 19 or 20, it's happened in their teens. So something clearly is happening in society that young people are not able to cope. I think there are certainly lots of pressures, and I think there's lots of pressures of life, and I'm not sure that many young folks have the skills to deal with what's kind of happening at the moment. So, but also I'll say very, very quickly that if somebody said they're suffering with anxiety or depression, now there's a place for medication, and that's right and proper. But when my understanding of anxiety or depression is your body, your mind, your psyche is trying to get your attention, something isn't right and you need to look at it. But anxiety is a symptom. It's symbolic of something. So that's what I kind of look at. And depression, the same thing as well. But certainly in terms of our own community, I'll say this, I make no apology for it. I've used it in many places, in mixed audiences. There's a African-American historian, he's now passed away, called John Henrik Clarke. And he said this: Black people need to remember Western civilization was not created for us. So the whole structure, politics, government, education, everything about it wasn't designed for us. So actually we're living in a part of the world that wasn't designed for us. Hence, there are pressures on us which the indigenous population don't experience. So mental health, mental well-being is absolutely key for us, and only us can look after it ourselves. I'll just say this and I'll finish and allow other people to speak. I remember when I was doing my master's, year 2000, and I remember I was an associate chaplain at Rampton Hospital, and I remember reading reports talking about the high incidence of African Caribbean men and women with schizophrenia. But they said the reports and research was done 30 years previously, but nothing has changed. And I'm now here, 2021, wrestling with the same issues. Very little has changed. So actually, if we're waiting for the structures to change to help us, we've got a long time waiting. But so what can we do as a people, individually, as a group, that can actually help ourselves to maintain our mental well-being? I'm interested in that.
You know what's so funny? The last Black Lives Matter was last year or just the year before? Last year, I think it was. I got asked to do a speech at Hyde Park in front of masses, and I wrote my speech a few days before, about a week before to be fair, and then literally the day before, I think I was on air, and I rewritten my whole speech. It's because I listened to Tupac Changes, and I literally broke down on air because I realized everything that he was talking about is literally relevant to this day. It was really scary to see that put into the perspective of what progress has really been made. And for you to say that, you know, in 30 years, it feels like it's in the same place is really tough. Now, I do feel like a lot more progress has been made recently because there's been a lot of accountability.
Sure.
And I'm hoping it's a catalyst for it to continue. But I feel like it's still quite disheartening to know that there's the same scenarios and issues that are being felt from then till now.
Yeah, I think what I will say, and I don't want to sound discouraging, I think we have a window at the moment, but the window is going to close at some point. We may have the window for 2 or 3 years. I think a lot of I'm not knocking it because the conversation needs to be had. A lot of the discussions around race, I wonder whether we would have had those discussions had George Floyd not been murdered and the way in which he was murdered. I suspect not. So there is a response from organizations, companies, and I'm wondering whether this is genuine or is it reactionary. We'll see as time goes on. One of the things I have challenged myself about and other people, there's this whole thing around equality, diversity, and inclusion. But I read something recently challenging the whole thing around inclusion. Inclusion is very shallow and can be very political. And I've always been cautious of things that are in vogue or fashionable. But this person, John Swinton, spoke about, instead of inclusion, let's talk about belonging. Because you can be a person co-opted onto a committee, an executive board, but you still don't feel that you belong. So it can be a tick box exercise, which companies will do to get their numbers up. But actually, this whole thing about belonging. So how does that take place? The person who you've co-opted on, do they feel, he or she feels that whatever contribution they make, it will be given due respect and full attention like everybody else's comments. So for me, belonging is far more important and challenging than inclusion.
And we do hope we see more of that in the future. We're gonna go over to some of our panelists now. Ayo, I'd love to know what you when you hear the term mental health as a young Black man in 2021, what does that mean to you?
It means like it's another aspect of your well-being, because you have physical health, obviously, when you get like physically harmed, that you could bleed, everything is very obvious. Whereas mental health, it's almost on the surface, you can look normal, but it's within you and how you process things and how you like perceive life, that can change severely. So like if someone who's severely depressed, and especially during the pandemic, whereas you're not going out as much, you're isolated, like because of like obviously the lockdown, you're going to be more likely to not be openly tell your friends aren't going to see you, because obviously social gatherings are banned, and you can be depressed and your mental health can be really bad. And I feel like mental health is equal to physical, because once you are like depressed and stuff like that, there's loads of like physical aspects of it as well. So like you can gain weight, you're not eating as much, things like that. You feel fatigued, tired. So like I feel like mental health is a very, very important aspect of your person, of your well-being. It's something that needs due attention. And within the Black community especially, because we have a lot of stigma around going out, around seeking help, around outreach, especially in the families as well. Like there's a whole like religious, spiritual aspect. Your parents might not understand what you're going through. They might not be well versed in mental health. So I feel like it requires a lot of attention, and it requires you need to upkeep your mental health, like go access services, tell your friends, join chats like this to have conversations, have discussions, just to upkeep your mental health and make sure that you feel good about yourself.
Here's a question. Do you feel comfortable? Let's say you was going through something right now. Do you feel like you could go and speak to your friends about mental health? Because we can probably talk about girls, we can probably talk about going out, having fun. Do you feel that you have access to your close people to speak openly about mental health?
Through my personal experiences with mental health and like my family and close family members, at this stage in my life, I realized that maybe when I was like 17, 16, I didn't really understand it. But as I've grown up, as I've witnessed things, as I talk to people who are going through things that are close to me, I realized that I need to be able to speak to a certain people. I wouldn't say everyone. I wouldn't put it on my Instagram, everything like that. The people I'll be like, bro, I haven't been feeling too good about this, or especially because I have my girlfriend as well. I speak to her about everything, and my brothers. So I have the people that that I know I can talk to, and I know that will take it seriously. They won't necessarily. There's no pride, because I realized I learned in life. You need to put your pride aside at times to feel better.
That's amazing, because I know for a fact there's a lot of people that feel like they can't speak to their close friends. I had this conversation the other day, and I was saying, how can you have a community of friends that you can talk about everything under the sun, except for when you're going through something deep? And especially in young Black men, that's what I found. People would rather shoulder shrug it and act like they're okay. Lorena, I'd like to go to you now. You've got a mental health page with Hopeline. What made you want to start that? Why is mental health so important that you wanted to try and contribute to helping it?
So I actually made this page in the first pandemic, in the first lockdown. So during that first lockdown, there was such an influx in negative news intake, and a lot of people was posting about mental health. There was quite some high-profile celebrities that had committed suicide, and there was all this chat about it and no solutions. So I was looking on other mental health pages that was available on Instagram, and they kind of was encouraging people to speak, and a lot of quotes, which is all really positive, but there was no kind of interventions out there that are just easily accessible. So I created Hopeline, which has like a range of information about different topics of mental health. It's got helplines on there, it's got activities that you can do, it's got like different therapy styled interventions on there that people can carry out by themselves. So it was just to try and bring what we do at work and then make that accessible for the public.
Can I ask what the response has been like?
Really positive. All of my friends have been so positive, always sharing, really helping out. It's got quite a good following. Well, in my opinion, it's got like nearly 3,000 followers, which I think is great. When I look at the insights, it's got people from all over the UK and some people in America, so I'm not sure how they found it, but that's brilliant as well. So no, I'm really passionate about that page. I really enjoy it. It was kind of my outlet in lockdown as well, somewhere to push my boredom into. And I'm always so willing to talk about mental health, could talk about it for hours on end. So yeah, it was great. It was a nice little project that I've had going on.
No, that's amazing, man. And I feel like the more, like, it's more like a build it, they will come. You know, you put it out there and people be receptive of it, which is amazing. Now, Dom, I'm going to go to you. You are, even right now, currently working.
I am. I'm on location.
You're on location, darling. I want to get your perspective on mental health. You mentioned that you dived into modeling. In that kind of industry and in dance, that's kind of your outlet. But I wonder, have you ever come across any form of stigma within it that's affected your mental health?
Well, I've never actually spoken about this, so it's a first for me.
Okay.
But in dance in general, like in the modeling industry, I'm a curve model. I'm a bit bigger than the average. So when that comes to dance as well, if you was to stand in front of someone and say you're a dancer, all my life I've got my energy, okay, that's fine, people can understand. But if they were to look at me physically without me opening my mouth, they would probably double guess it, just because of my size. And I feel like that's something that has always been in the back of my mind. From a young age, you never really understood like life and how it goes. But there was a time in university when I applied for an actual dance school. So I was going to drop my normal undergraduate combined honours of business management and dance and just go to a dance school, which purely worked on your physical and training like 100% of the time. And I felt like I was ready for that. I went there and they gave me a conditional offer. Well, they didn't. They said no to me. And then I said, well, I've withdrawn from my other course. I've done all this. I really need to go to this school. I didn't think I was going to get a no. So they said, okay, because of that, you can get a conditional offer on the condition that we are going to be watching you every week. And if you're not pulling your weight, then it's bye-bye, basically. And with that same sentence, the person that was talking to me actually said, are you ready for ambulances, maybe being sick, maybe taking pills, you know, when your body's hurting and stuff like that? And I already understood that maybe the sacrifice for dance, but that just, I don't know, it just turned my thoughts in different. So I was like, no, I didn't take the offer. I went back to my normal course. And I just thought, that's something in my life that I always look back at and think, why did I not take that opportunity? Was it because of the way that the person said those things? Or was it me thinking, oh no, I can't do it? And it was me thinking I can't do it because of how people portray me and how I saw myself at the time. But now it's totally different. I use dance as, like you say, an outlet, and I use dance to inspire others and motivate young people and old people as well. I've literally just finished a workshop with Caring Together in Leeds, in Little London, and I'm teaching people at the age of 50 plus. And the difference between
no, right, sign up.
No, right, still in the game. But yeah, it's really good. But just getting people moving, motivated, especially after something like the pandemic, I feel like I'm in the right space at the right time, if you get what I mean. And also starting modeling as a curve model. I probably couldn't have been a model about 10, 15 years ago, because modeling, they weren't talking all this diversity and curve and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I do feel like I do feel like I am where I need to be right now. And I'm just taking it and educating others as well. And yeah, it's first time speaking out, so.
That's good. Now that's what you know what I love about that though, because what we're going to touch on continuously today is the obvious kind of mental health issues where situations can derive from, but also that is there's things that affect our mental health in every walk of life. Like that's something that you are passionate about, that you got rebutted by for reasons either unknown or just horrible that affected you. Like that's something that people go through on a daily basis, having their dreams and their goals crushed and then having to deal with it. And I'm really glad you shared that, because that's something that very different. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not necessarily what people would, you know, would see as a issue if you didn't know what happened.
That's why I brought it up, because it's not what the person said or how they said it or who they are. It was my mental health at that time, because right now, if that was to happen to me now, I would have taken the conditional offer. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So it's just one of those choices.
Something else you mentioned, we're going to talk about the pandemic. We know the past 18 months has rocked the entire world. The world came to a standstill. Delroy, I'd love to get your thoughts. How do you feel like the pandemic has affected people's mental health?
Well, gosh, it's affected people badly because there's been so much uncertainty. There's I can't remember, the Chinese counseling psychologists had this kind of acronym of FLUID, F-L-U-I-D, FLUID. So what the pandemic had done, fear, F is fear, L is lostness, U is uncertainty, I is insecurity, and D is doubt. And all that was happening at the same time when the pandemic took place. And quite often people never had the resources to kind of deal with it. So you've got this illness, this disease you can't see, who's got it, who's not got it, and we haven't. So it's actually, it disrupted everything. I can't think of anyone who is not affected in one way or another. So when you've got all this stuff, fear, lostness. So loss is not just when you've lost somebody in terms of dying, but if we all think about how much we've lost in the last year, even from getting up in the morning and going to work on the bus or driving to work, and you're having to do it from home, that's a loss. When you meet with your colleagues at work, that's a loss. When you meet in the kitchen to make coffee or have a natter around the water cooler, that's a loss. And nipping in each other's office, that's another loss. And wearing your mask, that's another loss. You start racking up the amount of losses. We've had loads of losses. So quite often we just don't know how to kind of balance it all. And then if we haven't got the resources or we don't know what to do, then we're kind of crushed. But a very simple exercise I shared with individuals is a very powerful exercise, really easy. Get a sheet of paper, line across the middle, horizontal line. It's a really simple exercise. On the bottom half, write down the things you can't control. So Boris Johnson, Matt Hancock when he was around. So the things you can't control, you write down a list of what you can't control. On the top half of the paper, what you write, what you can control, what time you go to bed, what time you have your breakfast or your lunch, what time you go to lectures if you're a student, how you treat yourself, how you speak to other people. So you write the list of the things you can control. When you've got that list, tear off the bottom half and screw it up, put it in the bin, and focus on the things that you have control over. What that does, reduces levels of anxiety, reduces your blood pressure, boosts the immune system, and you can actually function. It's a really simple exercise, but it's very powerful in helping people manage in situations where a lot of the things around you are uncontrollable. So it's affecting people huge, but you can do things to kind of deal with it and minimize it. That's just one thing.
How's the pandemic affected you? This is something that came out of nowhere. Have you been working throughout? Have you had to change your working style, or what's it been like in your perspective?
Yeah, I've worked from home. I got the text from my manager when I worked for Sheffield Hallam University. As I said, I left in December. I got a message the Monday night: Delroy, the university's closed. Cancel all your appointments. And been working at home ever since. I remember there was a day or two when I found myself wobbling, and I had to talk to her. Delroy, come on, you know better than this. What are the things you can manage? So I had to talk to myself. After that, I've been fine. So I was unwell about 3 years ago. Bridget knows I was really unwell. And I remember calling my doctor last year and she said, look, you don't have to shield, but make sure you keep exercising, get lots of rest, and keep masked up and keep sanitizing your hands. And she said, if you're invited to a place where there's going to be lots of people, it might be best you don't go. And she said, also, believe it or not, as much as I'm still training, she says, you need to lose a little bit of weight. You need to increase all the chances possible if you should get it. So apart from those 2 days wobble, I was fine. I've just been able to work through it. I've traveled to London a couple of times on the trains. I had to do a funeral. So I've traveled about, managed myself as best as I can. I've taken to working online really well because okay, this is what I did. For those of you maybe listening, there's an excellent book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He was a Hungarian psychiatrist who was caught up in the concentration camps. And this is what he noticed. People who were optimistic died quicker than those that weren't. And he says what he meant. People who kept saying, by summer we'll be out, by August we'll be out, by Christmas we'll be out. They went through this expectation, disappointment, expectation, disappointment. What he did though, he imagined himself speaking to huge lecture theatres, even though he was still in the kind of concentration camp. So he was looking years ahead. So one of the strategies I used, and it's proved really well, when I heard lockdown, I said to my friends, look, this was last year. I said, we're going to be locked down for a year. No, never. Boris Johnson said 12 weeks, stuff that. I said, listen, we're going to be in lockdown for a year. But in my mind, a year, to get a vaccination, maybe another 18 months on top of that. To get the nation vaccinated, maybe another 2 or 3 years. So I've been looking 2024, 2025. So I'm not expecting anything to happen now. So what I was doing, I was saying, look, you know what, I'm not going to
preparing for the long game.
Absolutely. So you have faith in the long haul. So, you know, things happen quickly, fantastic. But for me, 2024, 2025, I kind of project myself, that's when we might see the back of this.
Well, I wonder, did anyone else, I mean, Lorena, how did you cope with the pandemic? You know, when we went into the initial lockdown, you made Hope Line, but were you someone that was able to see the long term and be like, I'm going to push through it? Or were you optimistic that it was going to be, you know, short and sweet and we were going to be out of it? How has it been for you?
Yeah, I was definitely aiming for the short-term goals. So relate to the disappointment, new expectation, job, but I was really lucky that my normal routine kind of somewhat stayed the same because I was going to work exactly the same.
Right.
So for me, it was more on my days off. It felt a bit strange, but it was quite a positive thing for me because it helped me slow down and I picked up loads of new things that I wasn't doing before that I really enjoyed. So there was a lot of positive things in the pandemic for me. Obviously, it was really disappointing when we weren't able to see friends and family. That bit was really hard, but I just spoke to my friends and tried to maintain like virtual contact and checked in with them and made sure like mental health was always a topic of conversation because the struggle amongst like the whole world globally was so huge. And just like a bit of a statistic in how much it impacted people across the UK is primary services such as therapy received 280% more referrals from March last year to, I think that figure came out in like April this year. So in 1 year period, it rise 280%. So the pressure on services and the pressure on the country through lockdown was huge. Really had a massive impact on people.
It's just crazy that, isn't it? The statistics that go to show how many people needed and wanted support. What's something that I can't remember who mentioned it, but I'm going to come to you on this. You are a model. You're someone that, you know, uses social media. You're part of this generation. I wonder, what's your thoughts on the link between social media and mental health? And by that, I mean from people judging other people's lives, from people judging their own based on what they see on Instagram and all these social media outlets. How have you found, social media affecting your mental health, and how do you think it affects people in general?
I feel like with social media, there's the good and then there's the bad as well. You have social media gives opportunity for spaces such as the mental health page, that like you can see a lot of positive impacts. There's a lot of like during the pandemic, people were sharing their stories in their back gardens, really positive things. But at the same time, there's a lot of negativity that comes to social media. You have the whole comparison aspect of like people comparing themselves to others, saying, I want to live that life, or I want to look like this, or I want this type of body. And narrowing it down to modeling as well, you have people like, with modeling comes a lot of anxiety, because it's not a short notice. You don't really know if you're working next week. You get your bookings the week before. It's a lot of like, there's not a big level of security there. And what a lot of models do, I have this conversation with these guys all the time, is that they will see on someone's Instagram that this guy's working all the time. And they'll be like, that could have been me. Why am I not working? I haven't got booked in, let's say, 3 weeks, and my man's always working. And then they start having a lot of negative thoughts to themselves. Is it me? Am I the problem? But you need to understand, like, if it was meant for you, you'd be there. So it was never meant for you, so you're not there. And like taken away from modeling, just in general aspects of things with young women and girls, they see these Kim Kardashian bodies, this influencers that, Black to me this, and they've started feeling bad on themselves, that they're not necessarily looking like this manufactured Instagram Photoshop body, and that there's a lot of negative self-comparisons, and then a negative view of the self and things like that. But like I was saying, but it's good as well, like opportunities like this. I learned about Black Health Initiative via Instagram. There's so much good things that can come from social media. It's just that having to weigh that with the bad as well. Do you know what I mean?
Now, one thing that
so like I feel like social media definitely affects mental health.
One thing that comes to me is when you got, and here to anyone that's ever had any work done, fair enough, but then there's people have had work done and they're trying to tell people about their gym routines, or they're trying to sell, this is what you do to get a body like this, when they got theirs paid for. Dom, I'd love to get your opinions on that, man. In women, with social media, with these standards that are being created, how does that affect mental health in women? Do you ever have these conversations with your friends or girls, and how does it make you feel? Because it must be tough.
Well, I feel like I've been saying, I talk about young people a lot, and I work with young people a lot in terms of dance, but I started at a dance school called RJC Dance, and a lot of the time it wasn't just dance, it was about life skills, understanding stuff as well. So whilst you're dancing, you've got people that are teaching you, that are giving you experience, and if they hear you say something like about your body or yourself, they'll just let you know that you shouldn't be talking like that. But I think it's very important to, in terms of mental health, to build resilience to the outside things, things that you don't feel are true, but as you keep on hearing it or seeing it, it's then becoming, oh, maybe I am a bit too big, or maybe I need to get that surgery, or I need to get my nose straightened or thinning out. That's not the truth. And what you need to do is build resilience about yourself. So I think it's good. Little methods like Delroy said about Delroy said about the writing down and ripping up, that's so good. Manifestation as well, putting things on boards, making sure that you believe in yourself and what you're doing. There was something else I wanted to say as well when I was talking. Modeling, social media, building resilience about that as well. Before, I never used to really use my phone. I used to think social media was like come on guys, don't use it that much. Since modeling, and I can't put social media down at all, so I'm kind of in a love and hate relationship with it, because when I came back from Canada, I got into modeling through Instagram. So literally I just started putting pictures on my Instagram, and I was approached by my agent. So I was signed by her seeing my pictures. So I can't really say social media is all bad, like I was saying, because it does bring you opportunity. But like I said, you have to build your resilience for it. Don't think that everything on there is true. And definitely don't think that because you're seeing someone wearing a Gucci bag or a bag that costs £600, that's about that small, that they've got it on the table next to some lobster, means that they're happy, because you don't know how that person got that meal, that bag. You don't know what they've done for that, and you don't know what they've gone through. So yeah, that's something that you need to remember, definitely. 100%.
I also had a situation where I know someone where I can't remember the exact details of it, but she was more happy to have, let's say she had £500, she's more happy to buy a bag for £450 and put £50 in it and then be broke rather than get a £50 bag. I had £450 in. So, but the reason why I say that not to judge is the fact that she felt that she had to keep up with the Joneses, and this is where it affected her mental health because
that's fine, and we can see that we'll probably see that as a negative because obviously we have a different type of like mindset, but she might see that as the best thing ever. She might have come from somewhere where she'd never had that. Do you get what I mean? So if she wants a bag with £50 in it, leave her to do that if she's happy. Do you get what I mean? So
but this is the point. She wasn't. She felt that she had to do it to keep up with her friends, but she was like, she didn't really want to. And I was like, well, why? She was like, oh, because I've not posted. Oh, the last picture I posted didn't get as many likes. Here's a question then, because we're going to go around quickly. Lorena, I want to get your thoughts on this. Have you ever posted a picture, let's say, and then didn't really get an interaction? So like you're taking it down. Like how's social media and your relationship with it?
I used to do that a lot when I was younger. I think like when you're younger and you're in school and college, and a lot about being a teenager is trying to fit in and trying to get like a lot of people's like approval of you. And I think when I was younger, I did used to do that at times. But now as you get older, social media is just more like an outlet to show your friends and just post things you enjoy. And it's not really for me about, oh, I need to get this many likes and I need to make sure people know I'm doing this and I'm doing that, because it's more just about me expressing what I'm enjoying or what I'm doing. And I think I probably use my mental health account more than my actual Instagram now. And yeah, I don't know, everyone's perspective on that is different. Some people get a lot of enjoyment out of that, and it positively impacts their mental health rather than negative. Person to person, I guess.
I like that because everyone's got a different perspective on it. What I would love though, I'd love more people to be like that, where it is you post for you. If you like the picture, you like it and you throw it on and you don't care what people think. I wonder what your thoughts on this is, because this is a generational thing.
Yeah, because I was going to, sorry, Sanchez, can I just jump in because it's not going to fit in, because I want Delroy to respond as well. So basically, the social media thing as well, in terms of like posting things that you want to post. When it comes to modeling, I don't know if you feel like this, Ayo, as well. When it comes to modeling, sometimes you don't want to post this outfit. Do you know what I mean? But because of your job, you have to post that particular outfit. But obviously you choose what you want to do in terms of jobs. But what was Lorena was saying that, let me think again. But in terms of generation, like work, social media is work. It brings my income as well. So in terms of social media, do you think it's a good or bad thing, Delroy? Or what kind of things do you think? Yeah, go on, Delroy. Let's say you
I think Ayo is right that it has good and bad. I think the danger, of course, is when you get into this thing about likes, and then that's because the danger, of course, it starts affecting your mood. When things start to affect your mood, then that's the time you've got to be really kind of careful. I'm not an Insta. I've been encouraged that I should be. Listen, I do a Facebook live every Tuesday, so I was really interested in listening to Lorena. I've been encouraged to, is it StreamYard, to kind of do it on other things, but I understand that StreamYard doesn't do live presentations to Instagram, does it? So I've been told anyway. So I think it has its place, but I think going back to your point, and I think it's right, Dominic, that not to believe everything. There was a program some time ago, was it Rich Kids, Skint Kids or something like that? And there was a black guy from Sheffield who was a rich kid who went to live with a poor family. And he said he'd never lived on a council estate. He was brought up on a council estate. I know his parents. It was pure lies. He's got over something like 250,000 followers, and I know his parents. And so obviously the television company didn't do their research properly, you know, and so, but what he's done, he's been very, very clever. He's used it. He does, I don't think he's an official, but he's model clothes and all that type of stuff. But yeah, he's never lived on a council estate, and he's never been on the dole, all that type of stuff. And his dad was angry because I don't think his dad knew it was going to be on the TV. And I saw this text, this long message to a friend. It was nonsense. He raised on a council estate and loads of stuff. So the point you make, and I think what we can do, we can project something which is not us, not really us, and people out there can be vulnerable, and they then start comparing their lives to other people who are living their lives, and that's happened quite often with young people. But you know what? It happens with older people as well. It's not just a young thing; it happens with older people as well. So part of the comment you made some time back ago, something I'm really, really committed to, this whole thing about self-love. It's really, really important. If you love yourself, I don't mean in a kind of narcissistic way, but you love yourself, you won't be moved and shifted by the different ebb and flows in society. You just won't, because actually you love who you are, warts and all. So social media, like anything else, has its good bits and its not so good bits, and it's how you use it, more so than it using you.
Can I just interject there a little bit as chair, just to expand this a little? In terms of organisational, BHI uses it organisationally. But since Black Lives Matter, and we, as you know, we stand for equality and equity of access, we've been trolled. More so, I would say my CEO has been trolled. And I've seen the effect of that. What would the panel say? Because I know Dr. Delroy has already talked about mood affecting moods, but how does that affect your generation as well?
Being trolled. How I agree with what Dr. Delroy just said there. I learned from a very young age to love myself, and that came from my parents. But also, it was something that happened. I remember someone tried to bully me about my big nose and big lips or something, and then it really hurt me. And I was like, but then I swear down, it was like a flash, and something was like, but I can't change it, so I'm going to embrace it. And since then, no one can tell me nothing. Like, I love myself, even though my dad's 6'2" and I'm only 5'7". I wish I was a little bit taller, I wish I was a baller, all that. But I love and embrace myself to the point where no one can, I can't get trolled. What are you going to tell me about me that I don't know myself? I know that I am Sanchez Payne, therefore I've got a fortress, and there's nothing that anyone can say upon internet or anything that could ever affect me. Now, unfortunately, there is other people that don't necessarily feel that way. So I'd like to pass that to the panel to see how you go through it. Ayo, I wonder if you ever been trolled, that say, people, I wonder if people give a perspective of you, they think you're this, you think you're that, because you're a model, you're a good looking guy. Have you ever been trolled? And if so, how have you dealt with it?
On like social media, you get those faceless accounts with like 7 numbers and weird letters of the alphabet sending you weird messages. And like more time, I don't pay no attention to it because, like you say, I've got a lot of like self-love in terms of like I'm confident in myself and like. But like sometimes it can be a bit daunting, especially like, let's say they're not even attacking your physical feature, they're just attacking you in general as a person, or you post something, it goes viral, and then when it just opens the gate to a lot of unwarranted opinions and just weird people just giving their 2 pence when they weren't even asked for it. But like I say, because they're just a lot of trolls, they want to feel powerful, and they want to know that they've affected you. That's where they get their satisfaction from, the fact that they feel that they can control your emotions. And if you don't give them that satisfaction, or let's say even if it did affect you, but you don't let them know, or you don't openly you ignore it, they're not going to get that satisfaction, and they're just going to feel somewhat empty inside. Because at the end of the day, they're probably going to go home and look for the message that they sent and just said, what's the point? Because he didn't give me no response. He's not visibly affected by it. And it's just going to make them feel powerless. And that powerless feeling is what they're going to end up feeling, because they're not going to affect my emotions or make me feel a certain type of way. And I'm not going to let them get the reaction that they want from me.
Lorena, have you ever been trolled? I know there's so many scenarios where it could happen very randomly. and very unnecessarily? Like, have you ever posted a picture or ever heard a rumor? People said she thinks she's too nice, or people have an opinion. Let's say you posted, even from starting your mental health page, honestly, there's people in this world that will see that thinking, who does she think she is, trying to help people? Like, there's actually human beings that think like this. Have you ever had anything like that? And if so, how have you dealt with it?
Luckily, I've not actually ever like been trolled or kind of really received any negative like feedback from anyone on the internet. So maybe people are definitely thinking that, but they're not sharing it. So I'm thankful for that. And I hope that this little speech from me doesn't initiate anyone coming at me from this. But no, it definitely does happen to people. And you see big celebrities in the media, like, who have been trolled, and as a result of that have taken their own lives. And I feel like a lot of people, especially who come out of reality TV like Love Island, etc., they're not prepared for mentally by the producers or whoever kind of runs the show for what is about to come out when they start this new life in the public eye. And I think that's really overwhelming and really daunting for a lot of people, because especially people from reality TV, they receive so much backlash. And you can literally just scroll on any of their pictures and you can see the trolling. And I think that leads a lot of people who may be influencers or from reality TV to share a lot of their personal life that they might not feel comfortable to. So it's quite sad. And I think people who work in that industry, there needs to be some sort of support set up for them, or producers of shows to kind of have some sort of input for mental health and preparation and a check-in following shows and stuff. I don't know if that happens, but it's definitely something that should be looked into to provide people with like the needed support from trolling.
So it does happen, and quite diligently to an extent, but obviously not enough. And here's something that I want to kind of transition to, which I really want to talk about, to kind of not necessarily get deep, but something that I have thoughts on. Delroy mentioned earlier about being lost and things that we've lost. And I want to talk about race and how that affects our mental health, because something that you mentioned there about these trolls, and this is what I don't like about the internet, we spoke about social media, the same people that were saying rest in peace to the Love Island, or people that have taken their lives, or people that have self-harmed, or people going through, or people spoken about depression, are the same people that next minute will be cussing someone or will be trolling. And the situation I want to bring up is the Meghan Markle. So this woman spoke out about what she was going through and got trolled, and she got questioned, and she got abuse. And then you wonder, what if she didn't speak out and she actually did what she wanted to do and took her own life? These same people will be saying, I wish you just spoke out and all this stuff. And this is what I don't like, how fickle people can be. So I feel like I want to get you guys' thoughts on race. So Dom, you say you got to leave in a second, so I just want to hear before you go. As a Black woman, how has your heritage either helped your mental health, or do you feel like a little bit lost in the sense of knowing your roots? Do you feel
So I feel like it's always helped my race. It's always helped me. Examples of going through the educational system, my high school was quite multicultural, but when I started going into higher education, like A-level, undergraduate, masters, I became the only Black female in my lessons, in my lectures. And that wasn't any mad subjects either. That was like business management, business studies, dance, arts management, policy and practice. I was just the only one. But I didn't notice that until I had to really talk about my race, which was maybe after the age of 21, so after undergraduate. I really thought, oh, this Black thing it's becoming apparent that I'm actually a Black woman. I don't understand why. I don't know if that's because it's society or anything like that. I just had to think. I was always thinking, oh, my hair looks really nice today, I'm a Black woman, or just little things. I thought, I've never felt like this. So I don't know if that's society that changed after the age of 21, but I just started to really embrace it. I didn't know why, but I'm glad I'm glad I had. But yeah, what was the question again, Sanchez? Let me add to that.
It's basically, maybe this will help because I am very confident in myself. But a few months ago, I not necessarily a breakdown, but I was proper contemplating. Like I genuinely don't really know where I'm from. So I know that my grandparents are from Jamaica, Aruba, Antigua, St. Kitts. But as far as Africa, as far as the further down in the lineage, I don't know where I'm from. And Delroy said it so well earlier about the fact that the Western civilization, that's not our origin. In my head, our origin is Wakanda. So I wonder, the question basically was, what's your relationship with your heritage? Do you did you speak to your parents about it? Do you know about where they came from? You mentioned about Windrush. Do you embrace that? And if not, do you feel like that's affected your mental health, not knowing kind of where you're from?
I understand it a bit more now. And like you said, I only know up to a certain point, so my grandparents. And because of the pandemic, I've actually sat down with all my grandparents that are still here, which is 3, and had a lot more stories from their childhood, and I understand their personalities a lot more and their ways. So that was really good. That's something good that's come from the pandemic as well. Understanding them, their lives, where they've come from, their relationships with people, and how they understand the government here and the pandemic. Because my grandparents were very like the rules and stuff. Obviously, I was too, but the rules, following the rules, following the government, listening to the news every day, and I couldn't listen to the news every day because I knew that was affecting my mental health. But they could easily watch it, tell me the updates, listen to everything that was going on, and just understanding them more. So I'm half Jamaican, half Grenadian, from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and that's the furthest that I know. But like you said, I would love to know my African heritage as well. And because I actually can feel it in terms of dance and music. And I don't know if this is because of social media as well, because there's a lot of like African culture being pushed in social media as well. But I can also feel in dance now and music that obviously it's in my blood that I've come in from somewhere else. And films like Black Panther, films like just certain things, you just know that you come from that. So I would really love to know my heritage, like you said, but I don't know further than my grandparents at all. No.
I'm going to come to you in a moment to get your perspective on this. I just wondered, Lorena, if you didn't mind talking about it, what is your heritage?
So I'm mixed race. So my mum is white. She's from England, and my dad is Jamaican. I tried to kind of trace back, like you guys were saying as well. And my mum's side, so her granddad, so my great granddad, was French. So there's a lot of different elements of culture from different places, and it would be nice to kind of understand them more, as you're saying. And I think it definitely helps to build identity. But it was quite weird growing up being mixed race, because like I grew up in a very white area. There was not very many cultures in my school. So I was often put forward for things to make my school seem more multicultural. So that was very strange. And when I was younger, it was brilliant. I was like, oh, I'm getting all these opportunities. This is brilliant. But then as I've got older and I've reflected on it, it's more like a tick box exercise. And then as I reflect on it, it's actually quite a sad reason why I was often put forward to do all of these things. And I didn't really start reflecting on that till kind of all the BLM movement, and I started having more conversations with my dad and things about being my Black side of my heritage. So yeah, it's just really interesting when you reflect on different elements and different parts of your life and how you've grown up and how being Black or having Black heritage influences that, and in what way it influences it.
Here's something I'd like to ask, and this is sort of a conversation I have a lot, because as a Black person, you kind of know your struggle. You know that in a racist eyes, you are, you know what I mean? Being mixed race, have you ever felt shunned from either side? Have you ever felt not white enough for the white side and not black enough for the black side?
Yeah, so when I grew up in high school, I relaxed my hair till it fell out nearly. It was, all I wanted to do was fit in with my like white counterparts. I wanted to be part of that, but then because I had no one really around me who was mixed race, black, or a different kind of ethnicity, I felt like I had to fit in and be more white. But then as I grew up and then moved kind of out of that white area, then I was like, oh, there's so many people around me, I can embrace this other part of me that I've not had the chance to do before. But then I also, when I got to that stage, didn't feel black enough, and people would be like, oh, you're not mixed race, you don't look mixed. And then that would be hurtful because I'd be like, oh, I am, like, I've got this whole part of me that my family have taught me about, and I've grown up with these same cultures and the same like rituals and things that you would do if you are Jamaican or black. And then I stopped straightening my hair and let my hair go back curly, and then I felt more embraced by people who are black or mixed race, and then I felt more accepted just because my hair is curly now to when it was straight. So the transition being really strange for me, and I guess for a long time it felt like I wasn't fitting in either way, and I'd be trying so hard to be one side or the other. But now I've just accepted that I'm somewhere in the middle, and that's fine, and I can be this.
Your whole is best of both is what you are.
Yeah.
Delroy, after hearing that and hearing the young people speak and hearing Dom talk about heritage and Lorena as well, Ayo, we're going to come to you in a second. What's your thoughts on how important knowing where you come from, your heritage, your culture is to the Black community to maintain and improve our mental health?
Oh gosh, that itself, that's another conference, Sanchez. So you've got quite a few conferences coming out of this 2-hour slot. It's a brilliant question, and I think Lorena is kind of really expressing. See, I kind of struggle with the term of mixed race, because actually there's only one race, that's the human race. I hear it all the time. I think, what's that? You know, what's going? Part of the language goes back to the kind of colonial stuff. And, you know, so I'm kind of hearing this. Please, Lorena, please don't take it that I'm actually offering a criticism. It's just, you know, all the time. But you've really expressed how some people or dual heritage, there's this kind of real battle. Very interestingly, though, there's no research done, but I remember talking to a Caribbean mother who'd got children that were dual heritage. And I have a suspicion in terms, and it's kind of obvious really, Malcolm X said, if you educate a man, you educate an individual. If you educate a woman, you educate a whole nation. So the culture goes through the woman, because the woman does the most of the, you know, the child caring and so forth. Mm-hmm. And I suspect that Black mothers who have dual heritage children, they have a stronger Black identity, which is natural really, because, you know, the mother's either African or Asian or kind of Caribbean. And I think the whole thing about identity is really important to our well-being. And part of my sadness was when I started doing my PhD, actually, in terms of my lineage, I really knew as far as my father and mother, and that was it. My grandparents were in Jamaica, so I first met my grandfather when I was a few days short of my 28th birthday. So my mother's side never met her parents, and he was the only one of the grandparents left. So in terms of our history, quite often, we can't go back very far. But I think what we have to do then, we have to do a kind of historical stuff around our parents. So Dom's now gone, but your father, Lorena, was he born here in the UK? Was he born?
He was, yeah, and my granddad was born in Jamaica and came over the Windrush generation.
Right, so how old's your granddad?
He's 66, I think.
Right. So, do you remember what time? Do you remember how old when he was when he came over?
I don't know. My dad told me the answer to these questions a couple of years ago, and I can't remember all the.
Right. So the grandparents on your father's side, are they still alive or not?
Yeah.
Right. And are they kind of, they're not suffering with Alzheimer's or anything like that?
No.
Interview them.
Yeah, I need to do it. They're in Jamaica, so it's a bit harder to have access to do that.
Right. So when I was pastoring and I did funerals, I used to say to the congregation, those of you who've got parents born in the Caribbean, interview them. Because once they've gone, those stories have gone with them. When I interviewed my mother, she told me some stories I had never heard of. So, you know, part of it was they came over, they got married, raising families and getting on with life, but actually interviewing them is really, really important. So I say to any folks where you've got your parents or grandparents born abroad, interview them, because actually what that does, their stories help to kind of consolidate your identity and your culture. So that's the kind of personal stuff. And then what I would say to individuals, it's really good if you get a chance to read kind of either African history or Caribbean history, go back as far as you can. It's quite interesting because the Arawak Indians or the Tainos, they came from Venezuela, but before that they came from the place that we would call Florida. So there's a real kind of rich, so it's kind of knowing all this history kind of helps you to understand actually, you know, you've just not turned up and your parents, where, you know, in terms of your lineage it goes back beyond the Windrush generation. So I would just say to, you know, interview your parents. But the whole thing about identity, Sanchez, the question you asked, is absolutely important. Knowing who we are, and if our parents can't tell us, because mine really didn't tell me much, you find out through reading and learning about the history of the people. Then you get a sense of who the people are. And if you can afford it, I've not been able to do that. I would say go to the Caribbean or go to Jamaica every year if you can afford it. 6 weeks at a time, and go and travel around the island, look at historical places. That helps to helps you to affirm a sense of self and identity. Really important. Or Africa, where you may be from.
I'm gonna say, Ayo, what is your heritage first and foremost?
I'm Nigerian.
What is now? Okay, even straight away, maybe slightly guessing there, but I feel like African culture has a lot more connection than Caribbean. I feel like a lot of us are not necessarily tokenistic, like everyone reps Jamaica, if you're Jamaican, everyone reps their island. But I don't know, I feel like the African culture has kind of kept their mother tongue and their connection with their, like Lorena said, rituals and stuff. Was that fair to say? What's your connection to Nigeria?
It's because, like, I'm a first generation immigrant, so I moved to the UK when I was about 3. I was born.
So where was you born?
I was born in East Africa, Tanzania. That's where I was born, and then I lived in Nigeria for like a year, 2 years, and I moved to Essex originally. Lived in Essex for like a year. I lived in Leeds since I was like 6. And I just lived in Leeds ever since. But like you're saying, like culture-wise, it's just like because I'm Nigerian, ethnically wise, in Yoruba, which is like a certain ethnic group tribe in Nigeria, which is one of the very larger ethnic groups. So I'm very like aware of my culture because my mom was raised in Nigeria, and a lot of my cousins in Nigeria, I still speak to them, and I'm aware of the affairs going on in Nigeria. So I'm still like very culturally linked to the place. And like you're saying, like because I was raised by my mom and she's Nigerian, I'm culture, and it's just something that's a part of me. Do you know what I mean? And I'd say like Africans in general, because Africa is built with so many different ethnic groups and stuff like that, where we're from respectively, usually. You know what I mean? And it's like the same way, like him, sorry.
Yeah, it's slightly quick.
We've got
you.
All right. I apologize. My connection's terrible. Sorry. The same way, like the parents are raising the culture, I'm raising the culture, and they keep the culture going on because it's so distinct. Same way, like in your Caribbean, Jamaican culture, you have your own as well, and I'm sure your parents keep it up as well. They say the same way, like Nigerians will keep up that culture and instill it in me that I'm Nigerian. I'm a young Yoruba. I grew up with my mom speaking Yoruba on the phone to her friends. I'm very familiar with very like part of my identity. It's very a big part of my identity.
Can you speak your mother tongue? Can you speak Yoruba?
I understand it. I can't speak as much as I used to. I understand it to a decent extent, and I'm trying to learn how to speak it a lot better, because I feel like I don't want it to die with me. You know what I mean? There's no way that I want to pass this language on to my children, because especially in Yoruba Nigerian culture, the language is such a big part of it, where like if you can't speak it fluently, they'll be like, come on now, you're British, innit? That's what they say to you, innit? You can't speak it like fluently. So like I'm really trying to speak it fluently. Like I understand it a lot, I'm very receptive to it, but just getting the words out is a different struggle, because it's very tonal, different language. And it's very like, the one word can mean like 3 things depending on how you say it.
No, for sure. So I remember going to Jamaica one time, and we must have gone out to a little dance or something, and I'm there just walking through, and someone looked at me, give me some side eye, and I was thinking, like, what? It was like, English boy, and I was like, and I can just sense it on you. You can just sense it, and even from that day, it was like, I honestly, it's such a weird feeling, and this is all going back to mental health. I feel so estranged. Honestly, when I say I can't, it was like I said a few months ago, but from that day forward, I have a tingle where the word belonging, Delroy, you said it before. Like, don't get me wrong, I feel welcomed in the environment. I feel okay here, but something in my soul really just doesn't feel comfortable. Like, I feel like I don't know who I am. For example, this is slightly off topic, but when we came to religion, I don't like saying conspiracy theories. I just think outside the box. But there was one quote that said, when slavery happened, they took the wealth, the knowledge, and information and gave us the Bible. And it was like, what would a typical funeral look like in Africa? What would a typical, conversation on our ancestors look like if we were in Africa compared to us being in the UK? And Darryl, I'd like to get your thoughts on that. You mentioned as a pastor, is this something that you've looked into to try and bring culture into it? If you
Bridget's on, I should tell you, I think I did a lot, really. Certainly, obviously, I don't know what happened before my arrival to the Church of Leeds. I don't know, but we did a lot of stuff around Black History Month. We did a lot of stuff around it. And in fact, we had a very good presentation on it. Sermons were done where I spoke about Blackness. I remembered, for example, a service I did in Black History. There's a verse of scripture in Solomon where he says, "I am black but comely." And the word "but" is written in italics, because in the King James Version, there was a struggle. So in the King James Version, the kind of Old English version, whenever you saw italics, the interpreters weren't sure of the word. So they put one in, but they put it in italics just to say, we're not too sure what this means. But in the King James Version, it says, "I am comely but black." There was this notion that you couldn't be handsome and black. So I spoke about blackness and the beauty of it and so forth and so forth. And I spoke about bleaching as telling God, you really haven't made me proper light, so I'm going to do a better job. So I kind of went to town with it. I recorded the sermon, and a friend came up to me after the sermon. He says, "Oh, I wish my daughter had been here to listen to the sermon." Anyway, that was October. New Year's Eve, she rocked up with the family. And we had a chat after the service, and I said, "Oh yeah, nice to meet you. Your dad said something, so forth." So I said, "Are you on Gmail?" She said, "Yes." So I recorded it on my phone. So I sent the sermon to her, and didn't think anything else of it. About 2 months later, he said, a father said, "Has my daughter contacted me?" I said, "No." He said, "In the sermon, did you talk about hair?" So I said, "No, I spoke about skin bleach and blah blah." I said, "Why?" Well, she had weaves and stuff on. After she heard the sermon, she took all the weaves out, and she's been natural ever since. And we're talking about 7 or 8 years. So now the other thing as well for me, I didn't say it too much at Leeds, but when I was in Sheffield, I used to say, when I used to get to do the sermon, I said, "Let's turn to the black man's history book." I meant the Bible, because the stories are not in Scotland or Ireland, they're in Africa. All the stories are in Africa, not unless you talk a little bit about Italy, but all the stories are based in Africa. So some folks perhaps weren't too happy about it. But actually, I do think, though, over in the West, how we've adopted the Christian faith hasn't helped us, because it's all about salvation. Living right usually means no drinking, swearing, or fornicating. That's what it really means. But I'm saying no, it's wider than that. So I think what it's done is kind of depowered us. So lots of things that we should really be involved with, because there's such a focus on kind of getting saved and just focusing on church, it then takes us away from injustice, inequality. All those issues are in the Bible. But it depends on the person who's reading from it, interpreting it, and using it to empower the people. So I was very, very clear. So I was a black man, and I saw my role as a pastor, as an educator, empowerer, improver, a teacher, giving people knowledge, wisdom, so they could make better decisions about their life. I was very clear on that, very, very clear on that as well. And Bridget is there as a kind of witness to some of the stuff I used to share on a Sunday morning. So.
Can I kind of widening that conversation then? In terms of injustice in the Bible, what would you then say the Bible would then say about what we saw on social media and we're still seeing of the killing of black men like George Floyd, and that level of, as we look at it, re-traumatization, and how that is affecting even mental health, not just in the USA, but also in the UK, in terms of the social media now showing images of our young black men, even here in Leeds, being brutalized, for want of a better word, by the police, the stop and search. And it's an injustice. So if we can lead on from what the Bible would say to how that then affects mental health of this generation, not just this generation, but my generation as well, as a mother, sitting and watching that, my heart bleeds, you know, in terms of what's happening to our young people or our people.
Sure. I think, well, it's a good question. I'll try and answer it as succinctly as possible. What comes to mind as you were talking, Bridget, is this whole idea when Jesus talked about, you know, turn the other cheek. And a lot of us interpreted it as, you know, that we just meant to kind of be easy pushovers. No. Jesus was making it very, very clear. He was really saying, how do you confront violence without being violent? So he really wasn't giving us the option to walk away. So how can you be creative in addressing this thing called injustice? The consequence of that, of course, turning the other cheek, is it's costly. And so the people who lost their lives in the process would have been Jesus himself, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Sam Sharp. So you confront violence without being violent, but it's costly. So in terms of our mental, so in a sense, we can't sit back actually and just pray about it and just hope it'll go away. It ain't gonna go away. So we have to do something about it. And I'm not too sure whether the answers are easy. I think even some of the stuff that we're doing here is helpful. But one of the things I'd be saying as well, in terms of what I'd be saying is this. I'm a black practitioner, and lots of us are black practitioners. I remember the vice chancellor for the University of West Indies, Hilary Beckles, said that one of the reasons why the white medical industry won't invest in looking at ways and means of improving care for us, there's not enough of us. So we have to do stuff for ourselves. So I'm not a segregationist at all, but if we're waiting for the structure to change to help us, we've got a long way coming. So what can we do as a community for ourselves, that we're still a part of this society, but we can't wait on structures and methods of care and interventions to help us in a holistic way. So it might mean that we have to draw on some of our older stuff. We might have to create some new stuff that we find will help us as a people to keep our heads together during very, very difficult times. Do I know what all the answers at the minute? No, I don't. But I think part of what we're doing here is having the discussion, and can we do something that's creative, practical, outside the box, that will help us as a people?
I just want to add on to that. I'm very much a massive believer in there's nothing wrong with doing for your people. I feel like a lot of people I feel like black people in general want to give everything away and involve everyone. But if you look at other cultures, if you look at, and there's Chinese people here that I know that will come here, build businesses, and send money home. You know, there's so many different cultures that do that, and it's not racist. It's not what. It's just looking after the community. Well, I feel like that's one thing that we need to get better at as black people, because I feel like we are doing something wrong if we're doing that. But what if something has been done to a certain demographic, then something needs to be done for that. And this is why I'm so passionate about mental health in general, but Black Health Initiative. I have no problem saying I want to help my fellow black people. It's nothing against anyone else. So that's a great point that you made. What I'd like to ask everyone, I'm gonna go around. How did it feel when you saw what happened to George Floyd? As a black man, what did you feel when you saw that? Because again, this is all going back to mental health, and that, I mean, I'll speak afterwards, but that affected me massively. What was your reaction to it?
You know what it was? I was disappointed, but I wasn't surprised. Like, and it was like, I really dislike watching videos like that, especially during that period of time. Seeing a lot of those videos against violence against black boys and black men and black women were really like circulating on the internet, like with the George Floyd video. It really like, it normalizes like violence against black people to a point where it's even perceived as entertainment. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's just content now. It really takes away from the seriousness of the issue, with that he's been charged and it's murder. Like, you're just watching someone get murdered. Do you know what I mean? You're watching a murder video, and it's not even though it should be a talking point, but these videos are put up as like just points of, oh, look at this, or bro, look at that. And even just like in London, you all see people chasing down guys with knives and stuff like that, and this and that. And violence against black men almost is like a subgenre of entertainment videos. So I really dislike watching videos that. It hurt me to see George Floyd get murdered like that. And the fact that he was so powerless in that moment of time, and those were his last moments on the earth, and putting me in position within the UK and everything, the whole power system, police and stuff like that. And it just makes you feel like that could have been me, because I'm just a black man. That could have been any of us. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Even though I'm not in America, but you don't know who's going to abuse their powers that be. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So that it just affected me that in that way. Just like, I really felt bad and sympathetic to all black people, that this kind of a struggle that we have to go through. And also the fact that those videos are so accessible. Like, you don't even need to go out here to find it. Like, you're going to eventually come across a video and it'll be like someone getting the police abusing their power, or if it's just another black boy chasing another black boy down the street and he's running for his life. And you look through the comments and you'll just have people treating it like it's just another entertainment, like it's just another thing taken away from the seriousness of the matter.
Now, the pros and cons of that is, Will Smith said, I'm sure someone may have said it before, that racism isn't getting worse, it's just getting recorded. So I'm happy in the sense that we can now show that there's clear footage, so there's no deliberation, even though there still sometimes is. People still try to combat it. I agree, I don't like seeing it, but I feel like it's necessary, because I have conversations with many people who are not black all the time, and they say, you know, it's not as bad as it used to be, or it's not that bad. And then George Floyd happens. Oh, it's not that bad. Then something else happens. Oh, it's not that bad. Then Raheem Sterling getting abused, Marcus Rashford getting abused. And I'm like, because sometimes when things are not shared and not in the public eye, a lot of times things can digress and people can think, oh, everything's okay. Whereas I'm like, no, we're still fighting this very much, because it's happening every single second of every single day. Now, Lorena, as a woman, when you saw this, what was your thoughts? I'm with Ayo on the point where I felt like, I am Sanchez Payne, I'm educated, I've been at Leeds United, I work for the BBC, I'm a good person, all this stuff, but there's a potential that if I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, like you said, I could just be seen as a black man, and that scared me to my core. But from a woman's perspective, who, as Delroy said, is the, you know, the kind of pathway into nurturing, you know, into raising the next generation and all of that. How did you feel when you saw that?
It took me about a week to be able to watch the whole video, because it was so extreme, it was so hurtful, it was so horrible that it was circulating on the internet for about a week before I could physically watch the whole video. But I remember when I did watch it, I just felt so frustrated because it was so preventable. It was so preventable. Like, in my role of work, we deal with a lot of violence and aggression, and we have to at times restrain people, and they're never in a position which would compromise their health. They're always restrained in a way which is safe. And it was so frustrating. It made me so angry that they restrained him in a way which compromised his life when it was so preventable. And at the time that all that was erupting, I sent an email to the Greater Manchester Police, just asking like some questions about what restraint methods they use, and have they ever considered using the same restraint methods as what are used in mental health services. And they just replied saying that because it's not part of any legal response or investigation, they didn't have to answer my questions. So that made me feel more frustrated about it. Like, how can people learn and develop when there's incidents that no one's taken any kind of learning opportunities from? Like, normally when something bad happens and we're presented with something where we can pick out things that could have gone better, things that went really wrong, you're supposed to use those as learning opportunities and make changes. But there was no changes made in the places which they needed to come from, was what was felt. In terms of restraint, because they've still not really got any answers about that, like reading up on it continuously since the death of George Floyd. But yeah, that was my perspective on it. It might be from a little bit of a different angle, but I think that's because my role of work and came into that too, because it was just really frustrating.
That's a really great angle, and I can't believe that you got a response basically telling you that we're not going to respond. And here's the struggle, and here's what I've seen get slightly better, but the demand for accountability. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that, but since Black Lives Matter, a bit kind of what you both kind of touched on. Louina, you mentioned it about being put forward in certain positions because of your race, and Delroy, you mentioned, about in a similar situation of, is it genuine, is it belonging versus, people just bring you in. Accountability has got better, and we're now not just saying we want change. We're now saying, okay, we need to see change. We need to see, it happening. We need to see progression. We need to see updates of the changes that you're making as far as inclusion of Black people in certain places in the workplace or certain roles, etc. We still have a long way to go, but that is very annoying that you saw that and you said, right, my reaction is to try and do something about it. And that's the response you got. Because again, everything's going back to mental health. If you're in a position where, and I think, Delroy, you said that as well. If you're in a position where you speak out and you don't feel what you're saying is not even being heard, but acknowledged and really taken in, imagine how that must feel. Like, imagine if you want to speak out, and we can talk about school. I'm not sure how you guys felt in school, but there were certain conversations where I tried to bring up and I didn't feel that I got the response I wanted or was deserved. When I tried to imagine telling people at your workplace, you felt discriminated against and it was more brushed to the side. If you try to tell people you're going through something mental health and gets dismissed. I know a lot of older generations who, no fault of their own, they came over to the UK. It's about working hard, stiff upper lip, do what you need to do. But imagine if you're trying to speak out and you're getting dismissed from left, right, and centre. That can't be a good situation. So that's frustrating me as well. So if it frustrated me, I can only imagine how you felt from it. We're gonna start to wrap up, and by that we're gonna conclude in positivity. So I want to go around, Ayo, in any scenario you may have been in as far as mental health, if you've ever been in a position of depression yourself, or if you know someone around you, what can be done to help? Like, what's some of your outlets that you do to make yourself feel better, to put yourself in a better mindset? Imposing.
Recently, I've started doing a lot of like boxing and things like that. Going to the gym. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
You hear me? Yeah, bless. I said recently I started doing physical things, like I've always been going to the gym, but I've started like boxing and things like that, and I found that really like boosts my like I just feel a lot better about myself. But in the past, usually it's just like people, like talking to my girlfriend, things like that, and just speaking to people, going out as well, being social. That was a bit, obviously couldn't do during the pandemic, but that was a big part of how I like let off steam. And like yeah, that's really it, you know, like how I like make myself feel better. A lot of it just through social, like calling, speaking to people, having conversations, because I realize that when I keep stuff to myself, I like to overthink and I become anxious, and then that makes things worse. I realize that getting it out, even just getting out, just like makes me feel a lot better about myself. Yeah.
And what do you want to see as far as change when it comes to mental health in the near future? How can we change how it's perceived? How can we improve it as a whole, as Black people, as individuals? What's the next step? What do you want to see happen? What needs to happen?
I feel like there should be more specialist services for like Black Health Initiative for our communities. And like, I feel like services like this and like even the NHS services, there needs to be a bigger community outreach in our communities. Because I feel like a lot of like Black people in the UK, the Black community, I feel like we have a hard time going to access these services until it gets really, really too late. And then also the services themselves, they need more cultural care. So understanding the that Black British culture, Jamaican culture, Nigerian culture, understanding how we perceive things and dealing with due diligence. I feel like it's so easy for young Black men and young Black people just to be sectioned quite quickly and removed from society, rather than being pushed with like drugs and stuff like that, rather than trying to deal with the root causes, the root problems, and taking a more holistic than just casting them out into the system. And I feel like that is a lot more worse than good, in my opinion.
Very well said, man. Very well said. Lorena, first of all, any tips and tricks on how you deal with stress, anxiety, if you're not feeling in a good place, and then what you want to see going forward regarding mental health?
Yeah, for me is rest when rest is due. I think we're all trying to be so busy all of the time, and sometimes the best thing you can do is just rest and just allow yourself to have a break. It's really important. And then what was the other question?
What do you want to see going forward regarding mental health? What more needs to be done? How do we change? How do we improve? What's the next step?
For people to continue to raise awareness, continue to talk about it, make it a normal topic of conversation with friends. The more we normalise it, the less stigma and scrutiny it'll have around it. And the more improved services we'll get, because more people have an interest in it and want to kind of put their part into that. Like kind of what I was saying is continue to develop services which are inclusive. So it's really important, I think, especially if you're a healthcare professional in a service, inpatient, outpatient, is to, if you're in a position to develop a training package or ensure that staff who have received racial abuse from patients get proper supervision on that and offer them to report it to the police. It is a crime, and I think sometimes we forget that, especially when you work in mental health services, because people are unwell, but it is a crime and it needs to be acknowledged. I think small things matter as well. So recently, something that came to light, what was happening on my ward, was when Black patients was being admitted, we didn't have any products for like their hair, or we didn't have any like things to cater to their needs properly. So we've been trying to make sure we've got some budget to incorporate things that they might need to. So small things make the biggest difference, and it's those small things that people will remember in care and mental health services.
That's a powerful one, because as Darryl said about Western civilization, they're the instances when you realize that we're not necessarily we're not meant to be here, but the system's very different. Because I had an example of that. I had a conversation where my friend's grandma was in hospital, and she went to visit, and then she didn't go for a few days and came back, and her skin. So this is something we do. We cream our skin, and they just didn't. It was oblivious to them, and they didn't know. So she had to cream her whole body and sort it out, and then tell them, and then give them the products to do it. And then, like you say, her hair, greasing scalp, and doing these kind of things weren't accessible to her. And like you said, that it's little, it's tiny, but it's so important. So that's amazing. Delroy, your thoughts on how you cope? You mentioned some great tips at the beginning. The writing down one, I love that, by the way, because that's what helped me realizing what I can control. You take the power back. Yeah. So anything else that you do personally, and then what you want to see going forward as far as the improvement of mental health.
Yeah, there's three things I think is really important for good health anyway, is rest, exercise, and diet. There's a macho thing about, living on 4 hours of sleep. Well, you can do that when you're late teenage, early 20s. You can't do that when you're in your kind of 50s and 60s. Trust me, you can't do it. So getting enough sleep is really important, because sleep is not just kind of cutting out, but there's lots of chemical reactions that take place in the body whilst we're resting, while we're sleeping. So sleep is really important. Diet is incredibly important as well. I'm from a church background, and so I say to folks, there's nothing wrong with a triple burger. If you have a triple burger 3 times a week, you can't pray out the spirit of obesity. You can't do that. So diet's really important. So I don't push vegetarians or being a vegan. It's up to you if you want to do that. But certainly since November last year, pretty much 4 days a week I have vegetarian food, and 3 days a week I have kind of meat and fish and so forth. So diet is really important. And I'll say, I know it's been recorded, but I'll say it, I've not trusted the food industry for years. So as much natural food that we can get, and we look after ourselves, so much the better.
I tell food.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's what the Rastaman would say. Yes. So exercise, rest, and one of the things that I do which has really helped me. So I still exercise. So I've kind of dropped off the last couple of weeks, but normally 5-6 days a week. It's a mix of running, circuits, cycle. Once I think things have settled down a bit, I'll be going back to swimming. So 5 or 6 days a week. So that's what I do. But what you can do, if you some people are not into gyms, so what you could do, now that the weather's warmer, allegedly warmer, what you could do, 3 or 4 bus stops away from home, you get off and walk home, or you might walk into town if it's 3 or 4 miles away, or you might go on the bus in the morning, but might walk home in the evening. There's various things that you can do to kind of help exercise. The big thing for me, I've been a journaler since 1999. The process of writing for me has been a godsend. So there's lots of research on therapeutic writing and how important writing is for reducing anxiety levels, lowering blood pressure, a whole range of stuff. Meditation, just being still, that's really important. I say to some folks, here's another thing, when you're working on screen, some folks, what they do, they turn the screen off and they're in the pajamas. No, wake up out of bed, have your breakfast and get changed, put your makeup on, your wig, your weave and all the rest of it. Turn up to the screen like you're going to work. That's a part of routine and kind of helping your mental well-being. Because one of the things I didn't mention when I spoke about lostness, Lorena said that for her, kind of going to work, it was still a routine. And for many people who've lost that, it's a huge loss. So what I say to people jokingly when I finish a training session, I say, right, I'll give you enough traveling time now to leave from your front room to go to your living room. So that's what I say. So writing for me has been really important. Reading is important. Anything you can do to switch off. And what I would say, before you go into bed, put it away an hour before, because there's stuff that emits off that stops us from sleeping. It interferes with the chemical reaction for sleeping. So an hour before, stick away in the drawer somewhere. And before you switch on your laptop in the morning, just spend a few minutes in quiet, silence, getting your thoughts together, breathing, slowing it down before you start today. You start in a relaxed state, and all those things, they don't cost much, but they're really important. I've got all my journals since 1999. I've got them all here. And for about 12 years, I journaled every single day because there was some crazy things going on. And the process of writing helped me to understand what was going on. But
well,
loads of...
as in when you write, you turn that into memoirs, into a book.
Well, you know, hey, listen, man, I'll tell you the truth. Some of the things I've written, I wouldn't want anybody to see them because I think I'm dead. So I've got them under lock and key at the moment. So I'm gonna have to decide what happens when I get a bit older.
One day, if you do it, we definitely want to listen. Just to end off and to round it up, what do you want to see going forward? So here at Black Health Initiative, we are so passionate about supporting mental health, raising awareness, and making a real difference. What do you want to see in the near future in regard to, I would say, just humans in general and the benefit and the improvement of our mental health? Yeah,
certainly that mental well-being becomes as in vogue. Talk about it like we would do if you sprain your ankle. So it's part of normal conversation, less stigmatization. Also, as a community, that we talk about it far more. Those from us from the church background, we don't spiritualize it or demonize it. Those are from the church background. We seek help outside of church. Some things need much more than prayer and, you know, just trust God and read the scriptures. Sometimes we need more intervention outside of what the church can offer. And certainly for those of us or practitioners, with some insight that we become, we develop new ways of working with people and helping people. And that for us as Black people, that there's lots we can do to offset mental illness. There's loads we can do. We don't have to wait till we get so ill. We turn up at the doctor's surgery or the hospital and we're so unwell, their default point is to inject us or to give us strong medication. But I just think there's lots we can do. I think there's far more we can do.
Amazing, guys. Thank you so much. It's been so great, man. This has been therapeutic. It's been educational. And it's been really great. Bridget, is there anything we need to close out on?
Just to say, fantastic panel discussion, great insight, great talking to everybody. And, you know, just as Sanchez says, just join us, BHI, with our host Sanchez at the up and coming events that are going to be happening around hashtag mental health matters. Just really good to have young people actually having a voice. And yes, it's been recorded, so we're going to share it with some of our partners and statutory bodies for them to actually hear what you're saying, you know, and the insight into what you're actually saying, even to what Aya was saying about George Floyd and some of that brutalization now just becoming content. So it's taken away from the seriousness of it. And for some, it's just content to watch rather than us actually responding and reacting to that. As Dr. Delroy said, it's time to understand what turning the other cheek means. It doesn't mean you're a walkover or you're a pushover, but it's actively looking at how you deal with injustice as well. And, you know, in terms of the insight from Lorena, her reflection made me have to actually reflect now on when school asked me to do things. Was it because I was the tallest and the biggest Black girl in school who was quite loud and was quite outgoing, or was it because I was just a really good student? Maybe, don't know. So thank you, everyone, for today, and looking forward to seeing you. Hopefully, if you can make it on the 25th of July at Hedgerow House, where again we've got hashtag Health Matters, hosted by Sanchez Payne. Thank you so much.
Ayo, Lorena, Dr. Delroy, and a big shout out to Dom as well.
Listen.
Guys, thank you so much, man.
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
So then, if the record stops, it should save and all that good stuff. Do you want to
I'll be saving it now.
Right.